All right. Are we ready? Oh, no. I fucked that up. Hold on. I need my microphone. Okay. That should work now. I'm gonna double check. Make sure it can hear me. Y'all can hear me. That's unfortunate. I'm so sorry that you can hear me. Babadook. Duck. Duck. I can do it too. Okay, hi guys. What is up? I'm so sorry. I deeply apologize. Big booty, big butt, big fat. What the fuck? Like what? Big booty, big butt, big fat. Okay. What is up? Hello, hi. Hi. Hello, hi, hello. I always do that. Fuck off. Today we are going to be talking about The Babadook. Why did I say it like that? Today we're going to be talking about The Babadook, and I'm really excited. This is legit one of my favorite movies. I have such an appreciation for it, especially after rewatching it just barely, which, by the way, check out my Patreon if you want to watch that with me. Clap. Butthole. Butthole butts. Want to see a cool fun fact? If you're listening to the audio, then you can skip forward a few seconds. But look, if you are watching the video, watch the screen right now. Ready, watch. I don't know what that's actually gonna do, but I hope this looks cool. I hope this gives a cool effect with the green screen behind me, and I hope it makes me look kind of like a ghost. It's how it would when I. It sounded like I was speaking Simlish, and it's because I was speaking Simlish. Just kidding. How cool would that be if I was fluent? I think this makes me look like a Sims 4 ghost. So, yeah, sorry for speaking Simlish there for a second, but anyway, how you guys doing? I hope you guys are having a good day. Today we're going to be talking about The Babadook. I literally almost said the Mothman. I cannot believe I literally almost said the Mothman. So before we get into it, I want to do some housekeeping already. My last video is the audio and the visual is a little bit off. And if it is in this one, I sincerely apologize. It's out of sync a little bit. It's a rookie mistake. It's an audio drift, and I didn't catch it, and I should have caught it in that one. We're fixing it. We're fixing it. It should be fixed. I deeply apologize. We're gonna redo that episode eventually anyway. First episodes are always messy. I hope this one is better quality. It sounds better, looks better, feels better, is better. But anyway, I am so obsessed with The Babadook. I just barely rewatched it for my Patreon. You know, go watch it along with me on my Patreon. Please, this is where I can interact. So join me over there on my Patreon, patreon.com/disgusting.podcast, because we are going to be watching lots of movies and doing lots of fun things. Even for the paranormal and true crime, we're going to be watching stuff. So watch along with me, and I'll be posting that on my Patreon. There's going to be lots of content over there. So please go subscribe to my Patreon. Lowest tier will get you into everything and get you full access. So yeah. Anyway, I love The Babadook. I love it. And after rewatching it, I love it even more. I genuinely have such an appreciation for this movie. And I think this is such a good movie to cover first because I think this movie genuinely encapsulates everything I love about the horror genre. Genuinely. People ask, why do you love the horror genre? Why do you like horror movies? Well, I like horror movies because of what the Babadook does in this movie. Or I guess because of what the metaphor even is for the Babadook. It's because of this movie, not, okay, I don't love horror movies because of the Babadook, but the Babadook is a good example of why I love horror movies. So, let me explain to you what is going on here, okay? Okay, I'm excited. First of all, before I get into anything, do I have any other housekeeping? I don't think so. I do, when I was editing, I noticed that I noticed that I was spelling mallet wrong in the editing. I spelled it correctly a few times, and then I spelled it wrong like the rest of the video. It's Mallettee, mallet, and I spelled it wrong. So if you don't care, then okay. But I wanted to clarify that's not how you spell it. Put it in the description too. And the only other thing I noticed was on Appalachian Oddity, they go by they, them. I'm pretty sure I saw on the pop-up on my editing, their pronouns are they, them. and I think I called them he on one occasion, or I called them a man on one occasion, and I apologize. I did not mean to misgender you, genuinely. I didn't even see that they were going by they, them, and I was just saying they, them. You can even kind of tell. I just was calling them they, them. It just felt right. It felt natural, just saying they, them when talking about Appalachian Oddity. Anyway, big shout out to them still. Seriously, such a great resource for the Mothman if you guys are ever wanting any more resources on the Mothman, but enough about the Mothman. But I did want to correct that and say I noticed that when I was rewatching it after I had uploaded it, and I saw it they, them, and I was like, oh, well, good thing I only referred to them as they, them the entire time, and I'm so sorry that there was that one time that I did say, or reference you. No, I said this guy. So I apologize. I'm pretty sure I said this guy or something like that. I said guy or dude, or I referenced you as a male, and I apologize if that's not how you would like to be referenced. So anyway, other than that, I think that's all for housekeeping, and I want to get into the Babadook. So before we get into the Babadook, I want to give a trigger warning. Like I said, this podcast is going to be talking about some disgusting things. That's why I called it disgusting, right? This is a disgusting podcast. Oh, also, hi. This is a disgusting podcast where we talk about disgusting things. And today we're talking about disgusting horror. I probably should have said that at the beginning, but whatever. And today we're going to be talking about grief, loss, death, child abuse, and trauma. So if that is not something that you can handle or something that will trigger you, take care of yourself and put yourself first. And maybe skip this one out. And I won't be offended. Maybe give it a like. Maybe give it a like first before you go, but I won't mind if you leave. Like, I won't mind. If you don't check this one out. If child abuse, we're not talking about any graphic child abuse, but we will be talking about child abuse. There's no, like, I just rewatched the movie. There's no excuse for what she's doing in that besides child abuse. So anyway, we'll get into it in a second. Oh, I looked at the clock and it was 2:22. That is so 2:22. Look at that. Look at that. Also, every time it's a different. Oh, you can see that. You can see what's on my screen. I pulled up my file explorer so that I could have a decently dark background, so it's not super bright. No one cares. No one asked. You can just see it in the reflection of my phone, so I thought I'd bring it up. But anyway. Okay, so now that we got the trigger warning out of the way, I want to clarify that these notes are also old. They're as old as the Mothman notes. As you can tell, I tried to start this thing a little bit last year. Didn't work out. That's fine, but now I have these notes and I want to use them. These are the only 2 episodes I'm using old notes for. Everything from here on out is going to be fresh notes. Fresh notes. I did rewatch The Babadook, and I watched the companion film. I call it, it's not a companion film. And I watched the short film. It's called Monster. It's on YouTube, available. I don't want to link it directly because I don't want it to get taken down, but it is on YouTube. If you just type in The Babadook short film, it's like the first thing. It's called Monster. It's decent. It's okay. It's written by Jennifer Kent, written and directed by Jennifer Kent. And it is missing a lot of what the movie entails. And I think maybe if I watched it before I watched the movie, I would have had a different experience, obviously. But you can tell where she gets all of her inspiration from because it's written and directed by the same exact person. So you can definitely tell, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's great, actually. So anyway, so I just watched The Babadook, and then we watched Monster. Both are available on my Patreon to watch along with me. So full watch-alongs available on Patreon. Watch along with me. Please, I beg. I need money. I need money, and I want to go to school, and I want to pay my bills, and I want to quit my day job. No offense if you are one of my coworkers. Hi, what's up? You guys are great, but I'm passionate about this. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to be doing. So anyway, you've got that spiel before if you've seen my intro or have seen my first episode. The last day to watch this movie on Netflix is January 25th, 2025, which they're also getting rid of The Magicians, and I'm pissed about it. Like, actually pissed about it. So I'm like binge watching it right now so I can get through all of it one more time because I've already seen it all, but I want to get through all of it one more time before they take it off because they're literally getting rid of it. I'm so... It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever. Anyway, they're getting rid of The Babadook too, I guess. The Babadook used to be on Hulu. Now it moved to Netflix, and I'm sure it's going to move somewhere else, so I'll link below where it is available next so you guys can watch along with me on my Patreon. So, okay, this movie is hard to summarize because every detail is so particular and so deliberate that if I skip anything, like I'm missing stuff. Like everything is very intentional. This movie also really got to me and is probably going to stick with me forever just because of the topics that it talks about. The Babadook perfectly encapsulates everything that I love about the horror genre. And let me tell you why. This movie is directed by Jennifer Kent, and it is based on a short film that you can watch on YouTube for free that's written and directed by the same director. Okay, sorry about that pause. You guys won't get that pause, but my editor, hi, sorry editor me. my editor's me, hi me. So, The Babadook was released in 2017. Did I get that right? Yes, November 28th, 2017. No, 2014. Wow. I straight up just lied to you. No, it came out November 28th, 2014. My bad. But the Saw series had just came to an end. When was the last Saw movie? Yeah, so Saw 3D came out in 2010. The Saw movies are so good, okay? I will die on this hill. I'm a Saw movie defender, okay? And I will get into that. I promise you I will get into that. But that's for a different time, different episode. But I love the Saw movies, specifically the first 2 Saw movies. Everything after that is okay, is alright. It's mid, more mid. But like still fun because like Saw, Jigsaw. Like anyway, I'm not gonna get into how much I love Jigsaw right now. And that's the thing is I don't love serial killers, okay? But I love learning about them. I don't love Jigsaw, but he is fascinating to learn about. He's also fictional. When we talk about real serial killers, we're going to get into that conversation too. Anyway, I love the Saw movies. I think the first 2 Saw movies are very, very good. But The Babadook was released right after the end of the Saw franchise. Quote unquote, the end of the Saw franchise. Because there had been a Saw movie every single year for like however many years. Yeah, basically every single year since 2004, there's been a Saw movie up until 2010. So from 2004 to 2010, basically every single year, there was a new Saw movie. They were low budget and they made a lot of money, so people really, really liked the Saw movies. Which, obviously, yeah, they're good movies, okay? Even the other ones, I say they're good movies. Whatever, we can agree to disagree on this if you don't agree with me, but I think the Saw movies are good. But the Saw movies were also very, very influential and had kind of flooded the market with torture porn. That's really the only way to put it. Torture and gore movies. After the Saw movies started coming out, more horror movies started leaning into the more graphic gore aspect of the horror movies. Whereas the Babadook came along and was like, no, we're not gonna do gore, we're gonna do psychological horror. So the Babadook was a refresher for people because it was more psychological based. It was more play with your mind, make you think, make you wonder, make you want to scream and cry and throw up, but it doesn't throw any like blood and guts in your face. There's like maybe one scene, two scenes with blood. One of them is not graphic at all. There's just someone, okay, 3 scenes with blood. Okay, 3. Maybe 4, but that's after the 3rd scene, and so she just has blood on her. Listen, okay? Go watch the movie. It's really good. Also, spoiler alert, by the way, for this entire episode. If you have not seen The Babadook, do not watch this unless you don't care about spoilers, because we're going to go through plot point by plot point, and we're going to be spoiling it in order, so we're not going to get to spoilers until we get to that in the plot, so you don't have to worry about spoilers until we get to those spoilers. So it's not very gory. There's a few kind of more graphic scenes, but there's no, like, oh, maybe there's a 4th one too. Okay, but there's no, like, super graphic scenes. Even that one is so, like, quick and sudden and not even like graphic. It doesn't feel graphic because the horror doesn't come from the shock value of seeing, except, okay, there's one singular scene that relies on the shock value of seeing something graphic happen, and it's at the climax of the movie, and that is very purposeful. So we'll get there. Oh my gosh. Yes, but the rest of the quote-unquote gore that happens in this movie is not gory. It's not graphic at all. There's maybe one other scene that maybe is a little graphic, but it's not gory. I don't even think there's blood in it, but it is a little graphic because of the content of what she's doing in the scene. And there's also another graphic scene that's not bloody at all because of what she's doing in the scene. So that can be 2 different things, and I'm talking about two completely separate things, but if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. I promise we're gonna get to it. But there is one where, spoilers. And then there's also one where she's, I know my little sisters listen to this, so I don't know if I want to be like, but she's, having a good time with herself. That's the only way to put it. It's not even graphic, though. My point is, all these horror movies around this time, and not specifically because of Saw, although Saw had like a major influence, but a lot of these horror movies around the time were relying on the shock value of graphic deaths and gore and stuff like that in order to, have shock value and scare you and, oh, this is a horror movie. Whereas The Babadook is like, no, this is what horror is actually about. And I keep teasing that. What is this about? This is about trauma. This is about grief. This is about everything that no one wants to talk about. Everything that makes you uncomfortable. This is about a mom who hates her son. Her baby son. He's not a baby, but he's young. I think he's 7. Yeah. And nobody wants to watch a movie about a mom who hates her 7-year-old son. Why would you want to watch that movie? And even my best friend was like, I just watched that movie. I did not like it. And I was like, I get it. It's not a movie that's for everyone. Like, I hope she's watching this so that I can convince her to watch it again and fall in love with it, because it is a really, really good movie. But depiction does not equal endorsement. It doesn't mean that it's okay for her to hate her son. But throughout the movie, she learns, I guess, kind of spoiler, to love her son. Like, that's the point of the movie. She learns to love him. But we might as well just get into it. So this is not a scary monster movie. A lot of people go into this movie really thinking, oh, this is a scary monster movie we're gonna watch. What's that? I haven't seen it. I think it's called like Sinister or something, where it's like a demon. I think a lot of people think this is gonna be, why can't I think of I think a lot of people are going into this movie thinking it's gonna be like The Conjuring or Insidious, where it's like, because it's not like those movies at all. I've seen both of those movies, and it's not like either of those movies. Which, side note, I love both of those movies. I could talk about those. I most likely talk about those movies in their own episodes. But Insidious is really, really good. I genuinely really loved Insidious. I didn't like how it ended. That's a different topic. But I also haven't seen it in a while. Maybe I need to rewatch it. What was the other movie I just said? The Conjuring. Okay, I loved The Conjuring. And I'm thinking more like The Conjuring 2 vibes. Isn't that the one with the nun in it, right? That's the one with the nun that's in it. It's not, I know there's a movie called The Nun, but it's like she appeared in The Conjuring 2 first. And then she had her own movie. Although that movie takes place before The Conjuring 2. Anyway, this movie is not like those movies in like the horror aspect of like jump scares and an evil demon's creepy. Like it's not what this movie's about. This is more about the suspense. This is more about the psychological aspect of it. And this is about grief and trauma and depression and anger and hatred. This is about all these things that nobody wants to talk about, that Jennifer Kent was like, I want to talk about this. And I'm so, so glad that she wanted to talk about this. She based this off her neighbor's son who was traumatized by a monster living in their house. And she always wondered if that could be real. What if the monster was real? You always hear the stories of like, oh, they're so normal, then one day they just snapped. It feels like it's taking that approach, but from the inside angle, from her angle, from the person who snapped. So we get to see why she snapped, how she snapped. Which, by the way, nobody just snaps. That's not how it works. And this movie is a good example of why and how it works. So from the outside, obviously, you're like, wait, they just snapped. Then on the inside, there's a different story going on, which is another reason I love this movie. The studio absolutely hated the ending. Okay, maybe that's an over-exaggeration. I don't know if they absolutely hated it, but they hated it. They pulled their funding. Literally, Jennifer lost all of her funding because she refused to change the ending of the movie. So I'm not going to spoil the ending right now, but when we get to the ending, we'll talk about it. Wow, I'm so glad that she did not change the ending, because it is so necessary for the entire moral of this story. For this story to even work, the ending needs to be what it is. So this movie was entirely funded by crowdsourced money. It was Their funding was pulled, so they literally crowdsourced all the money. This movie is it takes place in a hyper reality. It's from the mom's perspective, so you see the world as she sees it. Like, there's a very specific scene that made me think of this, where she's trying to explain to the cops what's going on, and they're not believing her, and they're kind of, giving her weird looks and calling her crazy, so she believes. But in this scene, I think a lot of the facial expressions the cops give her, especially when she's like about to leave, it flashes to the cops, like giving her a weird look. How I interpret that is her perception of what is happening. I don't even think the cops are really giving her weird looks like that. Maybe they were. Maybe the one cop who saw her dirty hands was giving her a weird look, but then she interpreted them all giving her a weird look. So it's very hyper reality. You are seeing this from her perspective. Her name is Amy, by the way. And they achieve this really, really well with the lighting and the interior design of the house. They used harsh, high contrast directional lighting to create purposeful shadows. And in the climax, she's the only thing lit because it's entirely focused on her energy. The colors that they used are exclusive to blacks, whites, blue, pastel pinks, and burgundy. This drove the production designer mad. Most of this movie takes place entirely indoors. There's a few scenes of them in the car. There's one at the playground. There's one at the birthday party. But it's mostly all indoors. They mostly use sound stages for filming because they wanted to be able to move the walls and play with the perception of space and play with reality, because this is a hyper reality. The director said that the location, the house, was a character within itself. So Euphoria does this hyper reality thing really, really well. I'm not going to sit here and say that Euphoria is a good TV show. Season 1 is pretty decent. Season 2 is a mess. Making sure I'm still recording. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Euphoria is a good TV show, especially when it's written and has a showrunner named Sam Levinson. Is that his name? Sam? Because he deserves prison time. Right next to Ryan Murphy and I, Marlene King, and Julie Plec, and Robert Aguirre-Sacasa. I think that's how you say it. All of them deserve prison time. If you recognize any of those names, you deserve financial compensation. Anyway, if you don't know who they are, then I am jealous. I am very jealous. I applaud you. But if you do know who those guys are, then get off the internet. Go touch some grass. And I'm talking to myself. Gus, go touch some grass. Bro, drink some water, touch some grass. But the one thing that Euphoria does really well, okay, not the one thing, it does a few things well, but one of the things that Euphoria does pretty well is the hyper reality aspect of it. And that's why a lot of people think that it glorifies drug use. I will argue Euphoria has a lot of bad things about it, a lot of things I do not like about it at all, specifically in season 2, but I would argue it does not glorify drug use. That is the one thing it doesn't do. I don't know how you could watch that scene in season 2 of Rue and want to do drugs. I get that there's the scenes of her doing the drug with Jules and they're all happy and whatever, and there's the scene of this room spinning and yeah, it's cool. It's all hyper reality. It's really euphoric. See what I did there? Whatever. But then it shows the downside. Glorification, that's not what this is about. I don't know why I'm going off about glorification of stuff, but so I would defend that Euphoria is not romanticizing drugs, but it uses a hyper reality kind of perspective, so people think it is, which is understandable. I get why people think it is, and if it's hard because if people think satire doesn't come across, it's not even satire, but if you don't have an intended target audience. Okay, I'm not talking about this right now. I can't. My brain is not functioning. So hyper reality versus consensus reality. Consensus. So hyper reality is the brain's inability to distinguish reality from fiction. I'm not a psychologist, but this feels like what I've been doing my entire life. Living with depression. Depression warps your view of reality, completely warps it, causing you to live in a hyper reality different from everyone else. It's also a good example of how borderline personality disorder works, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong. I am not a doctor. I'm not a professional. I'm not a therapist, but I do live with depression. That is something I have been diagnosed with, depression and anxiety. Those are two things I have 100% been diagnosed with by a doctor. And that is something I've dealt with my entire life, and I will continue to deal with my entire life. Depression warps your view of reality. It literally, if you have gone into a manic state, you know what I'm talking about. It makes you think things that aren't true, believe things that aren't true, And there are levels to this. There are levels to this because some people are worse than others. And there are certain names for that, like the paranoid personality disorder is like an extreme version of anxiety, whereas I feel like borderline personality disorder is more of an extreme version of depression. Again, I'm not a doctor, please don't quote me on that, but hyperreality is like a good way of explaining what goes on with someone who has depression. I live in a hyper reality where things are a little bit different and I perceive things a little bit different. So sometimes I have to walk that back and be like, okay, I perceived this way. That's not how it happened in real life. Things are different than that. That's not real. Like, I have to all the time walk back what someone said and go, did that person say this in this way or this way? Most of the time, it's in the good way, where my brain makes up a bad way, where it's usually the good way. And sometimes I'll even ask the person, I'll say, hey, what did you mean by this? And a lot of the times they'll just say, oh, I meant the good way, not the bad way. So all of that to say, this film is filmed in hyper-reality. It's filmed from the mom's perspective in hyper-reality. So yeah, the main reason that they used a set is so that they could change the walls and move the walls, make rooms bigger and smaller, and play with perspective and space. They wanted to kind of warp reality around Amy as she got deeper and deeper into this kind of fugue state that she ends up finding herself in. The set becomes more morphed and changed as Amy gets more influenced by the Babadook. The sound design is 8 million out of 10, and I'm not even kidding. I kind of want to rewatch it without any recording me or anything because I want to have both headphones in just to get the full experience. The sound design is incredible. Jennifer has an obsession with sound, so she was very, very particular with the sound design. Anytime the Babadook is near, you hear the cicada buzzing. It is so the version of the Babadook that they read to the kid while they were filming was actually like a kid-friendly version with a happy ending. So I think that's really cute that they like went through the effort. And also all the scenes where like the mom was screaming at him, he wasn't even on set. Like they filmed with like someone on their knees. Like someone was on their knees on the other end of the camera and she screamed at an adult and not a kid because that would be traumatizing for a kid. So I'm really happy that they took a lot of precautions when filming with this kid, which, great child actor, by the way. That's a whole conversation, child actors, and not even bad acting. I don't even care about bad acting child actors, which he was a good acting child actor, but it's more about the ethics of it. And that's a different conversation for a different time. Let me know if you guys want me to talk about that, because I'm more than happy to go into that. That's the thing is, I don't know what you guys want me to talk about or you don't want me to talk about. We're here to talk about the Babadook and not the ethics of child acting. And also, they really did seem like they took precautions in protecting this kid and making sure that he was safe the entire time they were filming. I don't know, I appreciate that a lot. So let's get into the movie. Let's get in. We're gonna go plot point by plot point and we're gonna go through the whole movie. And that's kind of how we're gonna do these disgusting horror episodes. We're just gonna kind of break down the movie. I'll give you some behind the scenes fun facts that I remember. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to take better notes than this because I don't know how good these notes are specifically, but for future episodes we will definitely be taking extensive behind the scenes notes and we'll be going through plot point by plot point and kind of recapping the whole movie, including spoilers. So spoiler alert starting now. And yeah, let's go through the Babadook. I'm so excited to just get into this. Again, amazing movie. Please go watch it and then come back and experience this with me. So the movie starts out with the inciting incident. We get right into it. The opening shot is this sick-ass scene where the camera is focused on Amy's face and it's all dark around her and there's a car accident happening like around her. It's very, very stylized in this hyper-reality, but that's because it's a dream. Then she wakes up and she floats down onto her bed. Usually you see people just kind of like wake up suddenly, but she like gradually floats down onto her bed coming back into reality. And I just think that is such a good decision. Sam is waking her up. So Sam is her son, her 7-year-old son, and he's waking her up because he had his own nightmare of the monster under the bed. He's like, Mom. So she goes and she checks for the monster. We don't know this at this point, but this is like a regular routine for them. So she checks everywhere, checks in the closet, the cabinet thingy, under the bed, and she reads him to bed. And then he asks, "Did they really kill the wolf, Mom?" And she nods saying, "I'm sure they did." This ties into the ending because, well, I'm sure they did. Can't get rid of the Babadook. Samuel says, "I'll kill the monster when it comes. I'll smash its head in." Which will come back later, I promise. So he falls asleep, and here's we get some shots establishing that she needs some space from her son. She puts literal space between them, and we start to see how she really feels about him. He's like grabbing onto her, not giving her any space. You can hear him grinding his teeth. He is just like, she is just not having it with him. And I'm not saying it's okay, all right? And depiction does not equal endorsement, okay? Making that clear. But I feel for her. I understand not having your personal space and wanting it, and it has nothing to do with the person. Although, in this situation with her, it does kind of have to do with the person. It has to do with Sam, which sucks because he's 7 years old. But that's the nuance of this movie. We're getting into it. And then we get a title card. Okay, that's taken. I can't steal things from other people. I already tried that with the ending of my outro. I can't do that again, okay? We're not. So we get a sense that this is a vibe for basically every night. It's like the same routine every night, the same checking under the bed, reading the book, checking under the bed. He's scared of the monster, checking under the bed, in the closet, and he's quote unquote high maintenance. That's like the vibe I get. He is being portrayed as more high maintenance. Then again, this is hyper reality. We're seeing things from her perspective, so things are kind of more quote unquote annoying. I don't know. I try to really, really get into her perspective in this movie because that's what this movie is. This movie is her perspective. You feel for the son, and by the end of the movie, you wish that he wouldn't have had to go through all of that for her to heal. But now she's healed and she can be a mom for him, which spoiler alert, but that's the point of the movie. That is the point of the movie, so she can be a better mom for him. So yeah, he's high maintenance and she is not feeling it at all. And you can tell. You can really, really tell. And in the short film, they like don't really build any of this. She's just annoyed with him running around and being a kid. So I like the way they do it in the movie a lot better than the short film. But anyway, go watch both. They're both good. So then Sam goes all Home Alone, Kevin McAllister, and creates some like homemade weapons, DIY weapons, which he does a pretty good job with. He makes like a ball launcher, and what was the other one? I think he either creates a crossbow or did his mom buy him the crossbow. But he uses his like ball launcher thing that he made and it breaks a window. He's basically a rambunctious kid, kind of a handful to deal with as a single mom. So you're really starting to get her perspective of this, which obviously you're still getting his perspective too. He needs a mom to take care of him. He's a 7-year-old boy. He doesn't know any better. And he obviously needs some extra help with some stuff. And that's not a bad thing either. I don't know. They don't call it special needs anymore. What do they call it now? I think that might be the correct term to use, people with special needs. But he just seems like a boy who would probably have special needs or need some extra help with some stuff, which is not a bad thing. I want to clarify that's not bad, but it's very obvious that she is not able to provide that for him, which is sad. But again, that's the point of the movie, and she learns to by the end, so we're getting there, come on. So we see her dressing Sam in a magician costume because he loves close-up magic. Hello? Hey, what's up? Oh, North Door Zone 5. Okay, that is super annoying. Do you know how? Yeah, I would say go check. Sorry guys, hopefully that won't take long for you. Had to take care of some work stuff, but we're back. I'm back by popular demand. Is that cultural appropriation? I'm sorry, Beyonce. I'm sorry. So we see her dress Sam in a magician's costume because he loves close-up magic. That's just like what he loves. He's obsessed with it. He gives his mom a hug, and then she pushes him away saying, "Don't do that!" Why? Probably because Sam reminds her of her dead husband. And we're gonna kind of get into that in a little bit, in like a few bullet points. But essentially, she associates her son with her dead husband. And we're about to find out. So she drops him off at school and then goes to work, and we see that she's a nurse at an old folks home. Which, fun fact, I worked at an old folks home once. I was a waiter, and they had a restaurant. Inside the old folks home, there was like a restaurant, and we would deliver to their rooms, but we had like sit-down areas, so I was also a waiter. I would serve tables. It was a nightmare, and not even because of the people, like not even because of the old folks that were there. Those people were decently nice. There were a few kind of cranky ones, but granted, they were old and dying. I can't even like be mad at them for being cranky. But my manager there she was not very nice to me. So if you're watching this, screw you. You know who you are. I'm not gonna name you, but you know who you are. I think my mom also worked at an old folks home. I'm like very certain that my mom worked at an old folks home. So this is where we establish that she's dealing with the grief of losing her husband and is caretaking a misbehaving son, then going to work and still caretaking people. So she's a constant caretaker. And I think this is also where she mentions basically while His name is Oscar. Her dead husband, his name is Oscar. So she's pregnant with their son, and she's about to give birth, and he's driving her to the hospital, and they get in a car accident, and he dies on the way to the hospital to give birth to their son. She eventually gets to the hospital and gives birth to the son, and no longer has her love of her life, her husband, and now has this kind of resentment towards her son. And it's not something she can help. It's just something that started to build up that she doesn't really have a lot of say in. 1 second. Hey, is it still doing it? All right, I'm back. Gotta love work-related stuff. So yeah, she's just always taking care of people and never has any time for herself. And it's really starting to weigh on her. And she already has this building resentment towards her son from her death of her husband being on his birthday. So every year on her son's birthday, she has to be reminded of her dead husband. And then she tries her hardest not to blame her son, but then her subconscious goes, if it weren't for him, he wouldn't have died. How dark is that? Isn't that so dark and disturbing and it makes you uncomfortable? That is the point. This is something that real people deal with. I don't know if it happened to Jennifer Kent herself or if it happened to someone near her, around her. Who knows? But this is something that happened. Had to have. I mean, this is something that very well could have happened and has probably happened to people before. And this is a topic that not a lot of people like to talk about. Again, who wants to talk about a mom hating her son because she blames him for the death of her husband? Like, I personally would love to listen to that story. I would love to watch that story because I want to see how that turns out. How does she heal from that? What does she do to heal from that? Do they heal from that? Do they ever repair their relationship? Oh, he's 7. Okay, so it's not his fault. He's a literal child. He has no fault in this. I don't know. It's very intriguing to me, but I see why a lot of people, I see the disappeal. Like I see the appeal and I see the disappeal. Is that disappeal? Is that a word? I don't know. We also see her wearing this like pink pastel nurse gown, and she's the only one in the entire movie that wears that color. That is her specific color. She's not like the other girls, but like actually that's why they did that. They wanted to separate her from the other women in the movie. No one else wears pink. And then we meet Robbie, who's kind of set up as this love interest, but that doesn't lead anywhere. I kind of want it to because I'm a hopeless romantic and I always love a romance subplot, but like I understand why it didn't in this movie and I don't think it should have. Like it really should not. Like I'm glad with the direction that it did end up taking because he's just like a side character, a little side love interest, and they don't expand on it. It's just there. But it's also probably because the first thing out of his mouth when he sees Amy doing the dishes is
just where a woman should be.
Which like I know he's joking, but like really, what's the joke here? Is the joke how ridiculous that is, or is the joke that she's a woman? And I mean, she does joke back.
Get to work, woman.
I know that it's a joke, but like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a joke that a man should be making, you know? Like, I'm probably just reading into it too deep, but I don't know. It just gave me a little bit of an ick, but at least he's not like a main part of the story, so we can move on. Let's be real, I'm just making up shit to hate on him because he doesn't really do anything in this movie. He doesn't do anything problematic or anything at all. Like, he's just there. So I'm literally just making shit up just to talk, just to fill time. Hi, welcome to my podcast. So they joke a bit before she leaves to keep helping old people, and then Sam's school calls her work because he brought his homemade crossbow to school. The principal and the teacher are very concerned for the safety of the other students, which rightfully so. So they say Sam will be getting a monitor and will be studying separately from the other students. Amy hates this and argues it, which I can agree with her on this. I don't know, the way that the looks on their faces that when they're talking are so like, I don't know, it feels very slimy, it feels very gross. It feels very like they don't have his best interest in mind. Whereas Amy is genuinely concerned for how this is going to make her son feel about himself, which I appreciate that from her. So yeah, they can't come to agreement. So Amy says,
I think I'll just find another school.
So as they're driving to the store, Sam says,
Mrs. Bowen hates me.
And it made me really sad because it unlocked a core memory. First grade sucked. Mrs. Screw you. And yeah, I'm calling you out by name. You are the worst. The worst. I can go into detail. I might do like a story time on my Patreon or something. Maybe like in a Q&A if you guys are really curious about what happened there. But you are the worst. I did not like my first grade teacher. She was not. Do you guys remember that story of the teacher that she gets a substitute teacher and it's a witch because she wants her class to like she reminded me of The Witch. Do you guys remember that story where the teacher like gets a substitute teacher and it's a witch, but it's just her dressing up as a witch and being really mean so that when she comes back they're like, "Oh, we missed you." That is messed up and manipulative. First of all, why did we read that book in school? But anyway, I remember reading the witch part and looking at the picture of the witch and going, that is my first grade teacher. And I don't I don't agree with calling women witches because they have a history of being burned at the stake, actually more of being hung, being hanged. And yes, that is correct terminology, being hanged when you're talking about hanging someone death-wise, like it's hanged. Past tense is hanged. Actually, the Salem witches weren't burned at the stake. The burning at the stake, I think, was done over in Europe before the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials were all witches being hanged. Anyway, all of that to say that I don't agree with calling women witches. I'm not gonna call Miss Craft a witch, but the similarities are there. I also don't agree with a witch being used as a derogatory term because, like, the Wiccan religion, is it even a religion? The Wiccan practice is, like, really fascinating to me, and I'm really into, like, the whole witchcraft pagan kind of thing. I really like that stuff. I like that stuff. So I'm not saying witch in a derogatory way either. Like, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying it reminded me of my childhood book. Miss Gruff was the worst, and we're gonna move on because I don't know why I'm still talking about this. I was a troubled kid, so this definitely hit me. I had different issues going on. Me and my mom had a good relationship when I was a kid. Like, I had different stuff going on, but I was still a troubled kid, so this still hit me hard. Him getting kicked out of the school and him thinking his teacher hates him. Like, I wasn't kicked out of that school. I did leave after that year, thank God, but like, we moved, but I didn't get kicked out. I could have seen myself going down that route with the way Miss Graff was acting. Dang. Anyway, back to the story. So at the store, Samuel tells a random lady an exposition dump for us that explains the accident that killed Oscar. So this is where we get all the details. Not all the details. It's just like a little bit of an exposition dump and where we get a little bit of character building from Sam, where he just kind of says what's on his mind. He just says what needs to be said. Very kind of autistic coded in my opinion, and I think it's dope. He just kind of says what's on his mind. So the lady asks a question and he just answers truthfully. He has no reason to not answer truthfully, which could be a kid thing too. It doesn't have to be an autism thing. But yeah, we get a little bit of an explanation about what happened. How Oscar was driving the mom to the hospital to give birth to Sam when they got in the car accident that killed Sam. That killed Oscar. Right? Yes, Oscar's the husband, Sam is the son, Amy's the mom. Then they go to the park and she's with her sister Claire. I think that's her sister. They call her Aunt Claire, so I'm pretty sure it's her sister. And Claire says that Ruby, her daughter, doesn't want to have a joint birthday party with Sam anymore so Amy has been doing joint birthday parties with Sam and Ruby because she doesn't want to celebrate Sam's birthday on the actual birthday because that is the day that her husband died, and so she's grieving and doesn't want to, put on a big birthday party. So she always has a joint celebration with Ruby, the daughter of her niece. Her sister's daughter. And Ruby has now started saying, I don't want to do that anymore because Sam is weird. And so Amy is like,
I understand.
but she says it in a way that's like, I'm dead inside kind of feeling, like felt that. And then Samuel climbs on top of the swing set and is yelling mom over and over and over again. She finally looks over and he's standing like, so the swing set is like this and he's standing on top of it. So like, that is wild. But I am a little bit confused. Was that supposed to be the Babadook? Like, the Babadook hasn't really started manifesting yet, but like, was that the Babadook? We also get the vibe that Claire is getting a little annoyed with Amy and her depressed ass, which, like, yeah, I get that. Says the one who is the depressed ass. Like, I get it. So then they go home, and on their way inside the house, we meet Mrs. Roach, who is literally the sweetest old lady in the world. Like, her existence makes me want to be a better human. She is the sweetest, most nicest, wonderful human being in the entire existence of the universe. She loves Amy and Sam so completely unconditionally, which is something that they need. Something that everyone needs. Everyone needs someone who loves them unconditionally. Everyone. And then we meet the dog, who paws at the door. I don't want to name the dog, because the dog dies. I'll say that now, right when we meet the dog, so you guys don't get your hopes up. But it is very intentional, and it's really sad, but it's intentional. There's like a reason. It's very plot, like, so I'm just not gonna give it a name, so we can pretend that it doesn't exist, and that is the opposite of the moral of the story of this movie. So, the literal opposite of the moral of the story of this movie. So, don't get attached, okay? Then they eat dinner and get ready for bed. She checks everything again, reads in the book, and then boom! Mr. Babadook, the pop-up book. Oh my gosh, do I need this thing more than I need air to breathe. And the sound design is so cool. The second they open the book, the cicadas come in. It is incredible. I go watch it. Go watch it. All right, ready? If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. If you're really a clever one, and you know what it is to see, then you can make friends with a special one, a friend of you and me. His name is Mr. Babadook, and this is his book. A rumbling sound, then 3 sharp knocks. Babadook, duck, duck. Babadook, duck, duck. That's when you'll know that he's around. You'll see him if you look. This is what he wears on top. He's funny, don't you think? Seeing him in your room at night. You won't sleep a wink. I'll soon take off my funny disguise. Take heed of what you've read. And once you see what's underneath, you're going to wish you were dead. You can't get rid of the Babadook. What? If it's in a word, or it's in a book, or is it look? The subtitles say look. Okay, I'm just pulling it up on Netflix so I can actually hear her. Like, does she really say look, or does she say book?
Where'd you get this? On the shelf.
On the shelf.
If it's in a word or it's in a look.
Look, she says look.
Babadook. His name is Mr. Babadook.
And this is his book.
Babadook, dook, dook.
Babadook, duck, duck.
We might read another one tonight, eh?
But you said I could choose.
Okay, I'm getting mad because I can't figure out if it's book or look, but I think it's look. She says look. I hear look. The subtitles say look, but then I Google it and they say book. Whatever. Okay. Babadook, duck, 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 duck. So then she closes the book and he's like, no, we're gonna keep reading. And she's like, we probably shouldn't keep reading this. And maybe she should have gone with her instincts. So this obviously terrifies Sam. He's so scared. So he is like crying in her lap and she's reading like a different story to him to try to get him to calm down. Now she has this book and she's like, what the fuck do I do with this book? Why? It's also like a pop-up book too. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but it's a pop-up book. So this Babadook creature like pops up out of the book. So she is like, what do I do with this book? So she puts it on top of the cabinet. And the sound design when she slides it onto the cabinet is... I'll try to put that in here. I'll try to edit that in, but we'll see. And then I don't want to sanitize it, okay? I'm just gonna tell you what's going on. She masturbates with a vibrator. Like, that's what happens. And right as she gets to her climax, Sam comes in and is like, the Babadook's coming to get me. Great timing, Babadook, right? That is the point. That is the point. The Babadook ruins everything. You can't even have 1 second to yourself. So she's able to calm him down and read another book to him. And then she hears footsteps and gets scared and hides under the covers and falls asleep. Which every single time that this happened like twice or 3 times where she just hides under the covers. If this were me, I would not go supernatural. My brain wouldn't go supernatural paranormal. My brain would go, oh, there is a person in my house. Like, that's where my brain would go. But I mean, I get that you're reading a book and it's this hyper reality and you're reading a book about the Babadook already. So like, oh, okay. But anyway, there's like a fast forward time lapse here that is so cool and taken directly from the short film. And it is so cool. It's like a fast forward like time effect. It's awesome. Sam wakes her up and it's past her alarm and we get more of her life kind of being in shambles. We get more of her day to day. Samuel is going to Auntie Claire's to spend the day with her because he's not in school and, she has to go to work. So she goes to work and does bingo for a bunch of old people and you can tell she's not having a good time. But then Robbie offers to cover for her at work, so she leaves work. And I love this scene because she doesn't go to like take care of her kid or go make sure he's okay or anything, which is not a good thing. I want to clarify. That's not why I love this because it shows her going and spending the day by herself. She just goes and gets ice cream and spends time just at the mall and just embraces being alone because she never gets time to just be by herself. And I don't condone this. I don't think it's the best. She probably maybe shouldn't have. I'm so conflicted here because everyone deserves their alone time and their free time and their time for themselves. But when you choose to be a parent, you kind of give that up. Not everyone chooses to be a parent too. So I don't know. It's hard because I get it. But then obviously something happens and she doesn't have her phone with her. And so when she gets back to her phone, her sister had called her a bunch and apparently they had gotten into a fight. Ruby and Sam had gotten into a fight or something. But before she sees her phone, she's sitting in the parking garage and she sees like a romantic couple school and gets really sad because she misses being in a romance, which relatable. And then she sees she has 10 missed calls from Claire, and so it turns out he had been yapping on about the Babadook and scaring the crap out of Ruby. And so she goes and picks him up. And Claire is very, very, very frustrated and is like, you need to get your shit together. She doesn't say that, but like she might as well have said that. So, and then Sam starts firebending, which is dope. I did not know that he could do that. So that's sick. Actually, he's combustion bending because it goes pop and like bursts on the floor. He's using those like firecracker pop things and basically combustion bending right in front of everyone, just exposing his secret to the world. All right. On the way home, she asks,
Where did you get those firecrackers?
He says,
Got them for me on the internet.
and she responds,
That's the end of the internet.
can't believe that she just canceled the entire internet just like that. What a legend. Icon. Diva. Slay, house down, boots diva. And then Sam says some creepy shit about the Babadook wanting to scare you before he reveals himself.
It creeps into your room at night and it eats your inside.
Let's get into what the Babadook is now, okay? The Babadook is trauma. It is a manifestation of grief and trauma. So when he's saying it wants to scare you before manifesting, do you get the metaphor here? Like, do you get what it's going for? Because I do, and I love it. So she grounds him by taking away his birthday with Ruby and saying no cake and no games. He doesn't get a birthday this year, which is just the start of her child abuse. In my opinion, taking away a kid's birthday party and their birthday presents, that's child abuse. Not affording to buy them presents, that's different. If you can't afford presents for your kid, that is not child abuse. But if you are purposefully taking away the celebration of their birthday, not even presents, just taking away their birthday, that is child abuse. I will fight you on this. Let's fight. So then they go home, and she admires Mrs. Roach through the window as she's cleaning her dishes. And this is important for later. You'll see. So while she's cleaning these dishes, Sam goes into the basement, the locked basement. He gets the key and he goes down there. So the basement is where Amy keeps all of Oscar's things, and she doesn't ever go down there. So she finds out Sam is down there and is like freaking out, getting real upset. And then Robbie? Is that his name? Yeah, and then Robbie knocks on the door. And he has flowers. And it's all cute and sweet. So he has a model plane for Sam, which he then gives to Sam and says,
My mum always got me a model plane when I was sick.
to build while I'm sick. It always made me feel better when I'm sick. And Sam goes,
I'm not sick.
alright, okay, diva. Okay, slay diva. Slay boots, hands down. Slay house boots down. Slay. Okay, diva. So this exposes her lie, which gets her upset, and Sam screams, I hate you! I wish you and Dad had never even met! Just kidding, that's from Wizards of Waverly Place, the movie. Go watch it. But what he does scream is,
Hey, you! You won't let me have a birthday party and you won't let me have a date!
10 out of 10 child actor. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Slayed the house down, boots diva. Like, literally ate that up. He ate that up. And he says all of this in front of Robbie, too, so embarrassing. And then Robbie leaves, and we never hear from him again. The Babadook got him. He died. He ends up dying from the Babadook. Just kidding. That doesn't happen on screen, but in my headcanon, he leaves, and the second he closes the door, the Babadook comes out and kills him and eats him. Why do I hate Robbie so much? No reason. What did he do? Nothing. So Robbie leaves, and then she finally goes downstairs. Amy finally goes down into the locked basement, and she sees that Sam has made a mess of all of Oscar's things. Upon rewatch, I'm kind of confused. Did the Babadook make the mess of all the stuff? Because it didn't look like he made a mess. Like, he was just playing with the things that were all set up where the picture was. Like, that's what he did. But the mess on the ground, that was the Babadook. That's how I interpreted it. I could be interpreting that wrong, but then obviously Sam gets blamed for it. Even though, because he was down there, and you see the other things he did. Like, he had the picture of Amy and Oscar. So there's a picture of Amy and Oscar set up because he was performing a magic show for like an audience, and I think there's a few stuffed animals, and then Amy and Oscar, like a picture of them, were sitting in the audience as like audience members, quote unquote. And so she sees that all set up, and so she grabs the picture and like gets really mad at Sam. So yeah, she gets mad at him, grabs the picture, and then it moves on, and they go back to eating food. So then while they're eating soup, she finds a glass in her bowl. Like, she's eating her soup, and she literally bites into glass while she's eating her soup. Traumatizing. So she grabs Sam's bowl and like starts scooping through it and is like, is there any glass in there? And there's not, thank God, but like, wow. And so Sam starts screaming, the Babadook did it. That was the Babadook. It was the Babadook. The Babadook did it. It was the Babadook. The Babadook did it. But Amy's like, just go watch your magician DVD. And so he goes and does that. And he has it completely memorized, like word for word. Nothing in my hands, nothing in my hands. And he like does this whole routine and has it like memorized. It's super cute. But then later she sees him run out of her room and she finds that picture of her and her husband on her bed with the faces scribbled out. I am under the impression that this was the Babadook again. Like Sam maybe saw it happen or like saw it on the bed and then ran out of the room, but I don't think that Sam scribbled out the faces. I think that was the Babadook. Like that's the impression I'm getting. So she goes and she gets mad at Sam in his room and he's like hiding in his room and he grabs the backpack launcher with like that throws the ball and they're like fighting over it and he screams at her.
Do you want to die?
And it's really funny, really cute, and really sad. I feel bad for the kid. But 10 out of 10 child acting, like, wow. He's eating her up. And she's doing a good job, too. Like, I'm not saying she's doing a bad job, but he's eating her up. She actually does a really good, she's a phenomenal actress. The girl who plays Amy, phenomenal actress. So then later on, she's downstairs and the lights start flickering. Then she hears a smash and a scream from Sam's room upstairs. So she runs upstairs and the cabinet that she put the Babadook book on had completely fallen over. It gives you the impression that Sam is dead, like underneath the wardrobe. He's not. So she finds him and he's screaming, "Don't let it in. Don't let it in," from underneath the bed. Like he's under the bed and she finds him and he's screaming, "Don't let it in. Don't let it in." It is wild. So she rips up the Babadook book and throws it away in the outside trash, and then they go to bed. But then they hear footsteps again. So she pulls the cover over her head and goes to bed for real. It does like the fast forward time thing again. Then we get to Ruby's party. This is wild. So we get a sense of how the other moms view Amy and how Amy thinks that their minuscule problems are irrelevant. So Amy does not really care about the things that they're babbling on about. She's like,
"That's a real tragedy. Not having time to go to the gym anymore. How do you cope? You must have so much to talk about with those poor disadvantaged women."
I think she just probably should have not said anything, but also she's right. So she is correct. Even if she's being mean about it, she is correct. So later outside, she's arguing with Claire about how she's dealing with Oscar's death, which Claire has no right to even say anything. I think she says something along the lines of like, "It's been 7 years, get over it." Like she doesn't say that word for word, but that's what she's saying.
It'll be 7 years. Isn't it time you moved on?
There is no time limit on grief. Amy will move on when she's ready to move on. That is how grief works. And for you to step in and say, "Get over it," that is so gross. I'm sorry, Claire. No. I'm sorry, Claire. That is -5 points. I'm like trying to think of a funny bit here. I don't know. I'm deducting points from your soul so that when you get to heaven and God's like, "How many points do you have?" You're now -5 points for that. So, but I'm deducting like 50 more points though, because then she basically says, "I can't stand being around Sam." So Amy's sister Claire says,
"Because I can't stand being around your son."
Like full up says that. But before like anything really can happen from this conversation, there's an argument happening between Sam and Ruby in the treehouse. I think they're arguing about whether the Babadook is real, but basically Sam pushes her out of the treehouse. And she falls backwards out of the treehouse, but somehow lands face down. So she breaks her nose, even though she falls backwards out of the treehouse. But she breaks her nose. She falls face first, even though she fell backwards. It makes no sense, but whatever. My theory is that the Babadook flipped her midair. The implications of that is kind of crazy. Like, I won't lie. But Ruby was bullying Sam and saying stuff like,
"You're not even good enough to have a dad. Everyone else has one, you don't."
which like, ouch. She's a kid, but wow.
"Your dad died, so he didn't have to be with you."
That's just
not
like
true.
basic
Your mum
little
doesn't
kid
want you.
logic.
No
Which,
one
yeah,
wants
Ruby
you.
is literally 7 years old, so. The actress they got to play Ruby, though, 10 out of 10 casting for the mom, like for Claire and Ruby. Great casting. She's also a great child actor, too. She's so sassy. I feel like I recognize her from something. She's very, like... No, the girl who plays Ruby, she gives me the vibes of, like... I feel like there's, like, a vine of a little girl doing something, and it gives the same vibes as Ruby. If I can find it, I'll put it in the editing here. If not, I apologize for bringing it up. So yeah, on the way home, he's screaming in the back of the car, and Amy screams back, "Why can't you just be normal?" I should put like a tally of how many times you could consider child abuse. I'm not going to, because that's not the point of this movie. The point of this movie is not to like harp on Amy for being an abusive mother. The point is her learning how to not be an abusive mother and working through that trauma. So I won't be taking a tally, but like, there's another one. He starts screaming really, really loud and then suddenly stops and tells the invisible entity in the car with them to leave, and then has a seizure. So it's like really, really intense and scary. So he's taken to the hospital and he's fine, but Amy begs the doctor for sedatives so he'll actually sleep at night and stop waking her up to cry about the Babadook. She wants to just get through the whole night without having to wake up at night and check everything and do the whole routine. Because she already does it before they go to bed, and then he'll wake her up in the middle of the night and do it again, and it's like a whole thing. So she breaks down, and in my opinion, the doctor is kind of slimy for this, but he prescribes her some sedatives for her son. I think that is gross. That is my opinion. I am not a doctor, but I think that is gross for that doctor to do that, to enable that kind of behavior from her. Desperate times call for desperate measures, I get that, but to drug your son, I'm sorry, that is just next level. And the doctor should not have given that, should not have prescribed those drugs to her. And the fact that he does, in my opinion, is malpractice. And he should get his license revoked. Good thing he's a fictional doctor, even though doctors like that exist in real life too. That is my opinion, not a fact. So, yeah, Essie Davis does such a good job. She breaks down for the doctor, though, and the way that she is, like, full-on breaking down is heartbreaking. So, like, I understand why it pulled at his heartstrings. She's a great actress, and I feel for her character. I still disagree, and I still think it was malpractice. Two things can be true at the same time. Welcome to Nuance Corner. Okay, I stole that as well. That is not original. That goes to Ofidoki on YouTube. Go watch her if you want a queer feminist talking about queer feminism. It's dope. She's dope. I'll link her below. She was in Charlotte's Web, The Matrix Revolutions, Enter the Matrix Reloaded. She's Maggie. In The Matrix, she's Maggie. What else has she been in? Exposure, One Day, Cabinet of Curiosities, Baby Teeth, stuff I don't really recognize. She was in Game of Thrones. She was a Lady Crane in Game of Thrones. She was in Legends of the Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, right? Is that Owls of Ga'Hoole? I loved that movie. Had a video game too. I'd play that video game all the time. Anyway, Essie Davis deserves an Oscar. An Oscar and an Oscar. Get it? Because the husband's name was Oscar. Okay. So Sam asks if the pills will
make the Babadook go away?
I think so, but you have to promise me not to mention it again.
I promise to protect you if you promise
take
to
my heart
protect
out of my
me,
chest and smash it with a hammer 5 times with a chair, because that hurts. That really hurts. So he tells her,
I love you, Mom.
and she just says,
Me too.
rather than saying it back. She can't even say I love you too back to her son. That's how much disdain she has for him, how much resentment, how much blame. It's so sad. Depiction does not equal endorsement. Then she goes and gets the first full night of sleep that she's had in a very, very long time. Sleeps in, even. She sleeps until like 11, I think, or something like that. When she wakes up, she goes into Sam's room and he's still asleep. So she just enjoys her morning. And then someone knocks at the door. So right after she does this, something that's awful, she drugs her kid. She literally drugs her kid, gets a full night's rest of sleep, and then is immediately confronted with her demons in the morning. The metaphor there is golden. I'm sorry, that is so, so good. You literally drug your child, and then you're immediately confronted with your grief and your demons. So, she opens the door after she hears the dun dun dun. It's the 3 knocks. She opens the door, doesn't see anything, closes the door, hears the 3 knocks, even more intense. And she opens the door back up, and what is it? On the floor, Mr. Babadook the book, coming back, ripped up still, but glued back together, and ready to cause some havoc. That's so terrifying, I won't even lie. Genuinely terrifying. Okay, so now the blank pages have filled in, and there's more writing. And it says, I'll wager with you, I'll make you a bet. The more you deny, the stronger I get. So when you know the Babadook is a metaphor for grief and trauma, those words hit. I'll wager with you, I'll make you a bet. The more you deny, the stronger I get. Then there's a pop-up of him in her room that says, "Let me in." Then another pop-up of her in his shadow. It's a pop-up book, and you can like move it, and it like does animations, right? "You start to change when I get in. The Babadook growing right under your skin. Oh, come see what's underneath." And there's a pop-up of her killing the dog. And then there's a pop-up of her killing the kid, and then one of her killing herself. So she burns the book. She burns it. Is gone. So now she's on the phone with Claire and she learns about her broken nose, and I think it's broken in like 2 different places. But then she tells Claire that she's being stalked by someone. But Claire is very dismissive, and so they hang up. But then someone calls back, and in a low, raspy voice it says, "Babadook, duck, duck." I need to listen to it. Babadook, duck, duck. I'm good at that. So she goes to the police. She believes she's being stalked. So she goes to the police and freaks out. And basically they don't believe her because she burned the book and doesn't have any evidence. So they're like, yeah, we can't do anything about this, sorry. And this is when she like thinks they're giving her weird looks. But she does see the Babadook hanging on like a coat rack. It looks like an actual person with like the creepy fingers and like everything. It's creepy. And then she like leaves. So when she comes back home, we find Mrs. Roach with Sam because they're hanging out while she goes to the police station. She needs someone to watch her kids, so she gave him to Mrs. Roach. And Sam basically asks, why are you shaky? And she answers, because I have Parkinson's. So Amy gets mad at him for asking such a personal question. It's embarrassing. Don't ask people personal questions like that. But Mrs. Roach says it's okay, and it says, hey, he's just like his dad. He's just like Oscar. And then Amy gets mad at her, saying,
Do you have to keep on bringing him up?
stop bringing up Oscar, and like gets mad at Mrs. Roach. Grabs Sam and goes back inside her house. Leaves really, really angrily. She leaves angrily. So then she's in the kitchen and there's bugs everywhere. They're coming from a hole behind the fridge. She starts tearing at it and she's in the middle of frantically cleaning everything when suddenly CPS shows up, which it's not called CPS, it's called something else, but it's for Australia. Oh, it's Australia. Why did I think this took place in just Europe? Australia. This takes place in Australia. This was made by Australians. Like, duh. But basically, it was like the Department of Community Service or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they came, they're like Child Protective Services, and they show up and they basically say that, I'm pretty sure it's because he's not in school and there's like a certain time limit you need to re-enroll your kid in school. I think it's because the school let them know that Sam was no longer enrolled, so they're coming to check in on Sam. They're saying, why is he no longer enrolled in school? You need to put him back in school or else we have to take him from you. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So, or you have to, maybe they're not going to take him right away, but basically they are there to make sure Sam is in a safe environment. So they come in, and then Sam, being Sam, says
I'm a bit tired from the drugs Mum gave
that brings
me.
concern to these people,
Not
obviously.
drugs, tranquilizers.
And then also the hole in the wall in the kitchen where the bugs were coming out, that's gone as well. So when Amy, says, hey, there was a hole in my kitchen, sorry, it's a mess, there's bugs everywhere because of the hole. There's no hole, the hole's gone. They just think she's crazy. It does not look good for Amy. Which, like, this doesn't ever come back. Like, they don't ever come back and, like, take the kid away or anything like that. But, like, it still doesn't look good. I think this is more to, like, get you to feel for Amy that, she is scared that she might lose Sam. So later that night, she's doing the dishes and she is admiring Mrs. Roach and her across, because like it's like the Taylor Swift music video where you can look across the window into the other person's house. So she sees Mrs. Roach, like, on her couch. And then in the background, behind Mrs. Roach, we'd already had this establishing shot earlier in the movie where she's, like, admiring Mrs. Roach. Now we see the Babadook in the background. Now the Babadook is here. He is fully starting to show himself. I mean, he had been, but now he, like, really is. So Sam wants to go to bed early, but she basically explains to him that if he goes to bed now, the pills won't work correctly. And forces him to stay awake, even turns the volume up on the TV to, like, make him stay awake. It's awful. That's awful. That's another example of child abuse, in my opinion, okay? That's just my opinion. Oh, is this? Yeah, okay. So she's lying in bed, and the lights are flickering again, and she hears scratching. And she opens the door, it's just a dog. She's like, okay. Goes back, lays back in bed, more scratching at the door. The dog's inside the room this time, so she knows it's not the dog. And then the door opens. It says, like, the raspy Babadook duk thing again, which I won't do again because that's I've traumatized y'all enough already. So then it crawls across the ceiling and jumps into her mouth. It's our first glance at the Babadook. So she's like holding the covers over her head, and then she, like, peeks over and there's nothing there. goes like that, and peeks over again, and the Babadook, like, crawls across the ceiling and, like, jumps down into her mouth. And, like, I thought that's when he possesses her, but no, he possesses her later. So she wakes Sam up, goes downstairs, puts him on the couch, basically says, I'm gonna stay awake the rest of the night. I don't know why she thinks that'll protect her from the Babadook, staying awake all night, but she basically starts watching TV to try to stay awake. Sam sleeps on the couch, and she hallucinates the Babadook in the TV. It's actually one of the cooler scenes in the movie where he's like appearing in like the different movie scenes and popping up. It's actually really fun. It's cool. I might put some pictures up. It's fun. So obviously she didn't get any sleep, so she calls out of work the next day and then basically says she's sick to her job and her job's getting all mad at her. I feel that. I have felt that in the past. I'm grateful my job now is not as strict about that kind of stuff. They're more lenient when it comes to sick days, but wow, do I feel that. So she collapses onto the bed and she's totally exhausted. She collapses onto her bed and then Sam comes in and basically says, I can't find any food in the fridge. You told me to eat food with the pills that you're giving me. You're drugging me. So I need food. He basically comes in and begs for food. He's saying, I'm hungry, Mom. Feed me. I don't have any food. There's no food in the fridge. My stomach hurts. I feel nauseous because I need to eat with these pills that you're giving me. Like, and she's just exhausted, collapsed on her bed. And she's like,
Do you have to keep talking? Don't you ever stop?
and it's really sad because he's like,
sleep.
I'm sorry, Mummy, I was just really
and
hungry.
she like sits up and looks at him and goes,
You're
well,
that
if you're
hungry, why
hungry,
don't you
then
go
eat
and eat?
shit. And she screams it at him. Like, she screams it at him. Which I'm so glad that he wasn't on set for that. That would have been so sad if that child actor was on set for that. That would have broke my heart. She screams this at him and then lays back down on the bed and immediately feels bad. So he runs out of the room crying and she gets up and goes after him and like apologizes and he's like hiding in the corner because she just screamed at him. So he's like hiding in the corner and she's like apologizing and is like, I'll get you all this ice cream. We'll eat all this ice cream, okay? Yeah, so they were extremely, extremely conscious about making a horror movie with a child and how hard it could be for a child. They made him very, very well aware that it was play pretend. So he was really good at decompartmentalizing that. He was like, well, we are doing this. This is play pretend. And then once they said cut, they're like, okay, this is play pretend. That was all fake. Like they made sure that they let him know that this was fake. This is all play pretend. And he was pretty good at being like, okay, cool. So he would go from like screaming and crying to being, oh yeah, this is fun. Like, and he would fully understand, yeah, this is pretend, this is not real. And I really appreciate that they spared this boy, this poor boy. I'm so grateful that they spared him. So in order to get the reactions out of him that they needed, those scared reactions, they would have the actress who played the mom, I just said her name. So Essie Davis, the actress who plays the mom, she would say stuff like, we'll put your Legos in cement and toss them in the water. And then he would react to that kind of stuff. So it was never any real traumatizing stuff. It was like fake little, like, I'm gonna destroy your toys. But like he knew it was fake. Like they were like, we're not really going to hurt your toys. Like this is pretend, like this is what's happening. Like they were playing pretend, but the play pretend wasn't this scary monster's gonna kill you. It's I'm gonna put your Legos in cement and throw them in water. Like playful kind of stuff rather than an evil monster. That's what I'm trying to get at here. I don't know if that's coming across, but... So they deliberately shot most of this movie in CinemaScope, which is like super widescreen or something like that. It's basically because the empty spaces in the background create tension. And Jennifer wanted to create a lot of negative space because it like subconsciously makes you uneasy. So like the negative space in the background where something could like maybe be there in the shadows that maybe not. She created a lot of those kind of shots with lots of empty space and lots of it was just very, very intentional. Very, very intentional. It's like every shot you think there could be something in the background, but there's usually not. But the fact that there could be, there might be. So Jennifer wanted it to feel like a pair of hands was like squeezing the neck of the audience, getting tighter and tighter throughout the movie until they couldn't breathe anymore. Which like, yeah, that's accurate. I would say watching that movie, it's very much like you're just getting more and more tense as you go. The hands are getting tighter and tighter. You can't breathe. So then they go to a restaurant called Wally's and they have breakfast to try to cheer Sam up. So she's been clenching her jaw throughout the movie and so she's starting to get tooth pain. And then while they're driving around, we hear the cicada noises come back and bugs appear in the car. And then the Babadook jumps on top of the car and starts like terrorizing them from on top of the car. And she like swerves the car and crashes the car with a kid in the back seat. There's another dude that like she crashes into. He gets out of his car and he's like, yo, what's up? And then he sees that there's a kid in the back seat and he's like, yo, you're doing that with a kid in the back seat? What is wrong with you? And then she like freaks out and drives away. And we never hear from him again. We don't know if he called the cops. We don't know anything that happened from that. Because that's dangerous. That's dangerous. You're driving with a kid in the car and then you crash your car into that's scary dangerous. Like, I do wish that there were some more consequences for that or something to come of that, but no, that never leads to anything. But yeah, when they get home, they're greeted by Mrs. Roach again, and Amy just ignores her, goes inside. And we are fully witnessing Amy's breakdown. She is fine, like, fully going through it. She makes a warm bath for herself and sits in it fully clothed because it's nice and warm and comforting. Like that, I feel so much for her. She is like fully starting to fall into this despair. She's grieving her dead husband, and now she's being haunted by the Babadook, which is a manifestation of her grief. She is not having a good time. She is struggling, and you can tell. She's sitting in a bathtub fully clothed, and Sam comes up to her and is like, "Mom, what's wrong?" And she picks him up and puts him in the bath with her, and they just sit there, and she's like, doesn't it feel nice to be warm and surrounded by warmth? That's so sad. Like, oh my gosh. So yeah, she's definitely falling off the deep end at this point. She goes into the basement, the locked basement, and gets Oscar's violin. He was a violinist, I think, when he was alive. And so she gets his violin and sleeps next to his violin. So at this point, she seems to definitely be in like a disassociative state. She has completely, like, she's gone. Like, she's in a disassociative state. So, she's laying in her bed and Sam comes up and he's like, should I call Mrs. Roach and ask if I can stay at her house? But Amy won't let him because it's embarrassing to admit that you need help. At least to her. She thinks that it's embarrassing. I don't think that, but she thinks that. And then she gets mad when he tries to touch the violin. So yeah, now she's like fully going into a fugue state, and she is like letting the Babadook have his influence over her. And she's giving into this fugue state of the Babadook, of her emotions, her despair, and she's letting it get to her and she's giving into it. So she goes down into the kitchen. She wakes up, she goes down to the kitchen. So this is after Sam asks, hey, should we go to Mrs. Roach's house? Should I sleep over there tonight? And so she goes into the kitchen, and Sam is on the phone with Mrs. Roach. It's like really, really late at night, and he's like whispering into the phone, and he's like, can I come sleep over? And so Amy grabs the phone and is like, I'm so sorry. And like, she's trying so hard to like stay calm, but you can feel the anger
I really
like
have to go,
deep down, and her like
Gracie.
being
So
all
sorry for
calm
troubling
about
you.
it. And then she
worries.
starts
Okay.
freaking out. She starts freaking out. She takes the batteries out of the phone. She literally takes a butcher knife out of the drawer and cuts the phone line, and then starts like swinging the knife around. Not like threatening to stab anyone or Sam or anything, but she still is like talking with the knife in her hand, and it gives very it's very scary.
It's just that the
And Sam
Babadook
says-
made you crash the car. I just didn't want you to let it in.
And she screams, nothing is coming in tonight. Nothing! So she goes and she locks all the doors and windows, and then we prepare for the finale. So she goes to give him another pill, and he doesn't want to take it, and so she snaps and gets really mad at him. And so he goes to take it and uses his sleight of hand magic and hides the pill. Doesn't take the pill. So yeah, they go downstairs and watch cartoons till he falls asleep. And then she hallucinates his dead body and starts freaking out. And the dead body's covered in blood, which is one of the kind of gorier scenes. But you don't see any like actual puncture wounds or anything. He's just covered in a little bit of blood. Yikes. But then she starts freaking out and then snaps out of the hallucination, and she's holding a knife and like threatening the son. And he's up on the couch all scared. And so he doesn't get hurt, but like that's traumatizing. She feels really, really bad for this. So she's like, let's just have ice cream for dinner and get some ice cream. So this poor boy is now always going to associate ice cream with his mom screaming and threatening him with a knife. So that's fun. Her tooth pain is also getting a lot worse as well. And then Sam falls asleep, and Amy, I'm assuming this is a dream. She's at this point probably asleep because she comes across a news report of a mom who murdered her 7-year-old son on his birthday and then was killed by the cops in a shootout. She sees herself smiling in the windows as the lights of her own house burn out. So this is all either a hallucination or a dream, probably, because Sam is sleepwalking into the basement and she follows him and finds her dead husband. It's the Babadook disguised as her dead husband, and she hugs him and is relieved to see him. I even think they kiss. And then he says, You just
need to bring me the boy.
And she gets freaked out by him saying the boy in that way and is like, why are you calling him the boy? That's your son, not the boy. What do you mean? So you hear the Babadook noises as she starts to realize something's off about him. And she says,
I mean, Samuel.
And he's like,
You can bring me the boy.
So she runs upstairs and all the lights are flickering and then they burn out. Then she sees the Babadook and runs upstairs and locks herself in either her room or a room upstairs. But this room has a fireplace and a chimney, which leads to one of the funniest moments of the entire movie. So she goes into the room and is like hiding up against the wall, up against the fireplace, and the hat drops down, and the look on her face when I don't even know how to explain it, but the laugh when the very first time I ever watched this, the reaction that got from me was next level. And I know it's supposed to be like a serious, scary moment, but her reaction to being like, I'm hiding. No, like it's so funny. I'm sorry. It's so good. She's such a good actress. It just killed me. She's like, she thought she was safe and she's like, no, it's back. Like it's so, oh my gosh, it's so good. So she crawls across the ground and then the Babadook. So this scene I think is really important because this is where, I think this scene is really important because this is where she finally gets fully possessed by the Babadook. She's there. She's in her prime. She is on the ground, crawling, crying, trying to get away from this thing that's just been haunting her and won't leave her alone. And instead of facing it, she's running away from it. She's on the floor crawling away from it because she's so broken down and in despair and in such an emotional state that she is crawling away from this creature, desperately trying to survive, but she won't face it. And so what does it do? It stabs her in the back and possesses her. Completely possesses her. Then she kills the dog. She kills the dog. She goes downstairs and she kills the dog. And it's really sad. It's really sad. And you're like, why did she kill the dog? Why is that necessary to the plot? Because it shows her state of mind. It shows where she's at and what the Babadook is making her do. What her grief, what her trauma, her despair, her depression, what it's making her do. The person it's turning her into. Doesn't excuse it, doesn't make it okay, but it shows the state of mind that she's in. What the Babadook is doing to her. Then she rips her tooth out. Her toothache comes back. So she reaches her hand in her mouth and fully rips her tooth out. It's like a back molar too. It's like a back tooth. Fully rips that out of her mouth. Poor Sam sees all of this go down, and so she starts chasing him. And she's screaming,
Let me in, you little shit!
Then she does this thing that is so unnerving. She grabs like the top of the door and she like jumps up and starts swinging her feet in like a gorilla, like to break down the door. And then she goes into the room and starts screaming all these awful, really disgusting, abusive things at him. So he wets himself, which that is so, oh my gosh. And she says, 6 years old and you're still wetting yourself. She's screaming at him. You don't know how many times I wished it was you and not him that died. So Sam, this poor little boy, just says, I just wanted you to be happy. And she mimics it, I just want you to be happy. It's awful. It literally is so hard to watch, genuinely. But she ate that up. She ate that performance up. She really ate that performance up. It's awful. Obviously, it's awful. But that is kind of the point. She is at her peak fugue state. She is gone. She's fully gone. She just murdered the dog. She's gone. And then she says, this is probably the worst thing she says to him. She says, sometimes I just want to smash your head against a brick wall until your fucking brains pop out. And that's when he yells, you are not my mother. And that's when she yells the most iconic line in the entire movie. It's iconic. I can't even recreate it. I'll just clip it in. I probably just did. But then he throws the firecrackers on the ground to kind of distract her, and he runs out of the room and she flips out and chases him. So he uses his Home Alone weapons from earlier, the crossbow and the backpack, to escape. He like shoots her in the arm here and then flicks the ball at her head and like is able to like escape her. And then Mrs. Roach knocks at the door, which calms her down slightly because Mrs. Roach shows unconditional love and genuine kindness to her and is like, hey, I'm just worried about you guys. I want to make sure you guys are okay. And this calms her down a little bit, enough to like probably save Samuel's life. It calms her down enough for her to like, enough for Samuel to get the upper hand on her. Enough that she's able to talk to Sam, but it doesn't last very long because he stabs her leg with the knife. He grabs the knife and he stabs her in the leg and then runs downstairs, where he has set up his Home Alone trap set and trips her and knocks her out and ties her up. This 7-year-old kid totally gets the upper hand on this full-grown adult, and I think that's amazing. And he says, we said we'd protect each other. So he's just protecting her. He knows that the Babadook got to her. And he knows that that's not his mom, and it's just the Babadook that got to her, and he's trying to protect her. And then he says one of the most heartbreaking lines.
I know you don't love me. The Babadook won't let you. But I love you, Mum. And I always will.
Okay. Mom, I love you. Then he gets close enough to her that she's able to like grab him and she starts to strangle him. Literally is like trying to strangle him and kill him. And what does he do? He puts his hand on her cheek and starts to stroke her cheek. Just like a loving... He shows her this unconditional love. That he's just, I love you, Mom. I love you. And that she doesn't know how to process that. So she lets go of him and starts freaking out, having these convulsions. And then she like gets up and turns around and like on her hands and knees and starts vomiting this like black liquid. I think it's blood, but it's, I think, metaphorical for the Babadook. She's vomiting up the Babadook. She's getting rid of him. It's finally getting out of her. Wow. That is so, the fact that like all she needed to do was to feel it, to go through it, and then Sam just had to show her unconditional love and just be there and just be like, yeah, I love you, Mom. I'll always love you. And that was enough for her to he just needed to allow her to go through it. It sucks that he had to go through it too, but he just had to allow her to just deal with the craziness. And then she threw up the Babadook. She threw it up and got it out of her. She was able to get the Babadook out of her. So then they hug, they embrace. It's like all heartwarming and cute, and she's covered in blood, so not really cute, but in her own vomit blood, I want to clarify. That was the other kind of graphic scene I was talking about earlier. She's covered in her own kind of vomit blood. And they go upstairs, and as they're going upstairs, they get to like the main level, and Sam turns to his mom and he goes, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And then gets pulled up the stairs by an invisible force. Like it's yanked up the stairs. So she chases after him and is like trying to grab him, runs into the room. He gets thrown against the wall. She grabs him and is like, rah! And then Amy is finally confronted with her dead husband. Obviously, it's the Babadook disguising as her dead husband, but he dies in front of her. She has to relive his death in its full entirety. She has to face the trauma, face the Babadook, not run away, not look away, because every single time she saw the Babadook, she would run away. She would look the other way. Throughout the entire movie, you see her actively ignoring and pretending like the Babadook doesn't exist. Now she's acknowledging it. Not only is she acknowledging it, but she's acknowledging her trauma at the same time. They go hand in hand. That is the point of the movie. They go hand in hand. So she sees this vision of her dead husband. He repeats the words that he said right before he died. And then you literally, this is the goriest part of the entire movie. Like, this movie is very gore-free. But right here is, and it's not, this movie's unrated too. Fun fact, unrated. But there's nothing in this movie that should cause it to be unrated. I think it just might be the topic. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that a mom screaming at her 7-year-old son. I could definitely see that making it unrated. And this scene right here, because you see him, he repeats the words that he says right before he died, and then you watch him die. They're not in a car. You don't see a car accident happen. It's so beautifully done because he's standing there, and you literally just see his head slice in half, and then he falls over dead, which is enough that you don't know what happened, but you still know what happened. You already know it was a car crash from the context earlier. So to see just that, like they're not in a car or anything, they're just in their room. And it's like big because they expand the room because that's what they built the sets for. So they expanded the walls to make the room bigger. But they're just her husband, and her dead husband, the Babadook, and her son in the room. And it's just, he's just standing there and just slice. I don't know which direction it goes, but he just slice and he falls down dead. And she breaks down. Obviously, she's watching her husband die again. And so she breaks down, fully, completely breaks down. And then the Babadook appears because obviously now she's dealing with her grief and her trauma. Her grief and her trauma is going to appear directly in front of her. So now that she has faced the grief and the trauma, now that she's faced the trauma itself, she needs to face the grief, the aftermath of it. So the Babadook appears in front of her, and I don't know if she's holding her son at this point or if the son's on the bed behind her, but at some point she ends up grabbing and holding her son because he's trying to pull the son away from her, and she's like, anyway, so she yells, "You are nothing. This is my house. You are trespassing in my house. If you touch my son again, I'll fucking kill you." Okay, you ate that. So that's when he tries to take Sam, and she fights for him, finally realizing her love for him. She literally fights for him. They're pulling. He's here, Babadook, Amelia. Sam's right in the middle, and they're pulling. Thank goodness he doesn't get pulled apart. That's graphic, but like she is able to protect him and fight for him and realize her full amount of love for him. And it's so, the entire movie, she has spent having this disdain for him and having a dislike for him and resenting him. And now you see her fighting for him, saying, "If you touch my son again, I'll fucking kill you." It is so good. So good. Because she's finally, like, this is character development. This is what character development is. You see a character start out one way at the beginning of the movie, and by the end of the movie, they have changed and have become a different person because of the events happening in the movie. So yes, we don't like the way she was treating her son at the beginning, but now you're seeing her fight for his life to protect him. Oh, this movie is so good. She literally forces the Babadook out using her pure will. She confronts it and says, "No, we're done here. Give me my son back." And she takes her son back, and it drops to the floor deflated. It literally deflates completely and drops to the floor like a balloon animal. Or like a bounce house when a bounce house deflates. That's kind of what it looks like. So here's some fun behind the scenes facts about this specific scene. They used sound effects from Mortal Kombat 3, which I think is hilarious, and the dragon growl effect from Warcraft 2. That's hilarious. And the way they made it was a scarecrow puppet on strings. That's kind of how it was, like a scarecrow puppet on strings. I just said that. I just literally just repeated myself. I need him religiously, biblically. The director wanted to give the actor something real to act to and preferred practical over CGI. So that's why they did it like that, which I think is brilliant. Brilliant. Rather than acting to a blue screen, you had something tangible to act to. Which, like, let's be real, it's not that hard to act to a blue screen. Like, there are much worse things you could be doing. So, but the fact that they were able to get, like, a scarecrow puppet, me, I am the Babadook, I just think it's really cool that she preferred practical to CGI. I think practical effects always look better. Okay, that isn't always true, but a lot of the time, practical effects look better than CGI, and they age better than CGI. Not all the time, not always, but a lot of the time. So she, like, bends down and touches the Babadook, the deflated Babadook, and it wakes back up and, like, freaks out on her and then runs down the stairs and runs into the basement. So how they did that was they put a camera on a rope and just, like, threw it down the stairs. Obviously more professional than that, but that was basically what they did to film that. And this is the only scene in the movie. Actually, we get one more POV from the Babadook, but this is a POV from the Babadook. It's his perspective. The entire movie, we're getting her perspective, but right here, we get the Babadook's perspective, which is pretty cool. So now we flash forward a little bit. I don't remember exactly how much time, but we do flash forward a little bit, and we see her life again and how she's actively changed. She's having a party for Sam on his birthday. I'm assuming it's his 8th birthday now, right? Or no, I think it's his 7th birthday. He was 6 throughout the movie. He was about to turn 7. That's like the whole thing. So it's finally his 7th birthday. Finally reached his 7th birthday because they had the birthday party with Ruby. But they finally reached his 7th birthday. And she's celebrating his birthday on his birthday with him. And they're like having a whole thing. So she's able to enroll him into a new school, and the CPS, Child Protective Services, or Australia's equivalent, they basically are happy with her. So you see them again and they're like, we approve, which is nice. It's nice that we get a little bit of a closure to that storyline, so we don't think that they're going to come back and take him later. Like, they do come back and they're like, yeah, I think this is a week later, because they mention we have to be back in a week. So they're coming back a week later, and they're like, oh, you look a lot better than you did last week. Which, good. I'm glad. And it's cute because Sam is still really blunt about everything, because he says,
My first birthday I've ever celebrated. My first party on the day.
and Child Protective Services are like,
That's unusual.
and then, Amy just explains.
My husband died the day that Sam was born.
He got killed driving Mum to the hospital to have
And they
me.
obviously understand, because you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But the fact that she's able to talk about it and doesn't have to hide it, character development. At the beginning of the movie, she would have just pushed it aside, ignored it. It would have made her look bad. She would have even maybe gotten Sam taken away again. But the fact that she's able to talk about it, acknowledge it, doesn't make it hurt any less. It still hurts. Still hurts a lot. But she's able to acknowledge it. Say, hey, this happened. And she was able to tell them, hey, yeah, we don't celebrate his birthday on his birthday because it's traumatizing for us. For me, it's traumatizing for me, but we're working on it. And this year we are celebrating it on his birthday because we're working on it. Like that, the way that she's able to just say that, oh my gosh, right there, that shows how much she's improved and how much she's healed and how much better she gets. I need a Babadook number 2 to show that healing is not linear. And that you can get better and then you can get worse and you can get better and get worse. Like, I would love a sequel that shows that aspect of trauma, because this shows the beginning aspect of healing, but I feel like there could be so much more said here. Anyway, we're getting to the end, don't worry guys. So then we see her planting a black rose above a tiny little grave in the backyard where we see that she buried Bugsy. I don't want to say the name because it makes me sad. I miss Bugsy. I love Bugsy. Poor dog. So to kind of give a little bit of a memorial to Bugsy, they plant a rose above the grave. And they also collect a bunch of worms. And you're like, why are they collecting a bunch of worms? And then you see the final ending, which is why they got their funding pulled in the first place. So she takes this bowl of worms down to the basement and tells Sam to go outside and wait outside on the porch. And he goes,
Am I ever gonna see it?
and she goes,
One day, when you're bigger.
hello, look at the metaphor here. Hello. That is so good. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Like, no, you're too young right now to see the Babadook, but when you're older, yeah, we can introduce you to him, and we can figure out how you can help me take care of him too. Like, it's so... Anyway, so she takes the bowl downstairs, and we see it's the Babadook in the basement. I already spoiled that, but it's the Babadook in the basement. And it, like, almost overwhelms her. It, like, you see it, you go back to the Babadook perspective, and it, like, goes right in her face and, like, forces her to bend over backwards. Literally bend over backwards in order to satisfy it, right? So it gets in her face, makes her, like, literally do, like, this back bend, like, she's trying to stay balanced. Like, that's literally, it, like, goes up to her, pushes her off balance. She does this, like, crazy back bend, flexible gymnast, legend queen. But then she's able to, like, gain back control, and she gives it the worms, and it eats the worms, and it's, like, a beneficial relationship here. She has to confront it, but then she takes care of it and nurtures it. And she's able to calm it down. She's like, it's all right, it's okay. She literally soothes it like a baby. So it eats its food, and then she leaves and goes back to her son. So they're sitting outside, and things are happier now. He performs this magic trick with a dove, which I think is actually pretty impressive. And then the camera, kind of the ending shot is of her face having this, like, pained smile. It's like there's still pain in the smile, but it's a smile. And she's happy. And she's with her son. And I need a sequel. Like that, wow. I would love a sequel bringing back, I don't know what the actor is up to now, but the actor who played the kid, like, imagine bringing him back and, like, that would be so cool. and like having another story about him being an adult and having to deal with like generational trauma and like having to soothe it again and living with the trauma and like the aftermath. I just think that would be sick. That'd be so cool. So yeah, this was a journey. This was such a roller coaster. I always say that. Come up with something original. Yeah, that is The Babadook. Thank you guys so much for watching, for listening, for being a part of this journey. I love this movie for a lot of different reasons. The Babadook is, what is he? Who is he? He is a manifestation of her grief. He is a manifestation of her trauma. That's like the best way for me to try to explain what The Babadook is, and is the epitome of what I love about horror movies, about what they tackle, the topics they talk about, the things they talk about, the subjects they talk about. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. Like, yeah, seeing a mom be mean to her kid should make you uncomfortable. But then by the end, when she's showing him love and fighting for his life, that should make you feel amazing. Made me feel amazing. I love this movie. And I love horror movies. And I love talking about disgusting things. Trauma is something that everyone goes through. Ask any random person on the street what the worst thing they've been through in their life and then compare it to yours. So my mom always used to tell me this like kind of metaphoric story. Like, imagine you're holding a backpack and all of your problems in your life are metaphorical rocks in this backpack, right? Super, super heavy backpack. If you were able to take this backpack off, set it in the center of a circle, everyone in the whole world is standing in a circle and everyone takes their backpacks off, sets them in the center, you can pick up anyone's backpack. You can look inside first and look through the different rocks and the different traumas and see, okay, whose do I want to pick to deal with today? 9 times out of 10, you're going to go back to your trauma. I would even say 10 times out of 10, you're going to pick your backpack back up. You're not going to want to pick anyone else's backpack up. You're going to want to pick yours up. Every single person on this planet is dealing with trauma. There's no point in playing Trauma Olympics. Who has it worse? Who has it better? Somewhere on this planet, someone has it worse than everyone else. Someone does, somewhere on this planet. Sucks to be them, I feel bad. Sorry, Robe, or sis, whatever. But that does not make your problems as a human being any less valid. You, as a listener of this podcast, your problems are just as valid as my problems. There is a difference, but there's no difference. Trauma is trauma, problems are problems. And horror movies are willing to talk about those subjects and dissect those subjects and really explore them in a way that could be really healing for some people. I know this movie was really healing for me, and I don't even have mommy issues. Like, my issues are completely different. And this movie really, really helped me in a lot of different ways. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm not going to do a super long outro today. Please just subscribe to my Patreon for some extra content to watch this movie with me, and for some research stuff coming up. We're going to be watching some stuff for research. All of my social medias are disgusting_podcast. All of them should be. I think the Bird app is disgusting_pod because of the character limit. And Blue Sky is disgusting-podcast.bluesky.social. I don't use the Bird app. But yeah, you can find me at linktr.ee/disgusting.podcast. I'll have that. I think it's that corner. Over there. You'll see it. But yeah, disgusting_podcast on almost all social media. And then like the main hub for all of my different links will be linktr.ee/disgusting.podcast. So you can't say that everyone has a water buffalo when everyone does not have a water buffalo. Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what just came over me. That was weird. That was really weird. I need to come up with something consecutive to like end these episodes. For now, I'm just going to read you guys the Babadook book. I think it would be cool. To what? I lost my train of thought. I think it would be cool because some of it didn't make the movie. And I think some of the more important parts didn't make the movie. And I wonder if she did that on purpose because the book is written by Jennifer Kent. So anyway, thank you so much for watching Disgusting Horror. And listening to me rant and rave about the Babadook and the movie and the entity, and thank you. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you're having a good day. I hope that whatever you're doing, you're having a good time doing it. I hope that you're having a good morning, a good night, a good evening, a good whenever you're watching this, and I hope that if you're cleaning or if you're working out, that you have a lot of energy and motivation. I hope that if you are driving, that you're driving safe. And if you're on a long road trip, I hope that your road trip's going well. If you're just driving to work, I hope you're not stuck in traffic. If you are stuck in traffic, I hope that things get better for you. because that sucks. Traffic is the worst. Anyway, I just hope that whatever is going on in your life is going good. And if it's not, then I am pushing that energy in your direction. Hopefully. I don't know if it works like that. But if it does, then I am channeling that through here. By watching this, you have now gained 10 years of good luck. So, I don't know. Sure, why not? And then, yeah, last reminder, follow me on social media, follow me on Patreon. Especially if you want to watch the movie along with me, because that was a fun journey. That was a really fun journey. So I'm going to be uploading that on Patreon. And don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to rate. Rating my podcast definitely helps, and leaving it a like, commenting, interacting with it, all of that helps, boost me in the algorithm. Hopefully, I don't actually know how the algorithm works. That's what I hear other people say, and so I'm just repeating what they've said. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and now for Mr. Babadook, written by Jennifer Kent, narrated/read aloud by me, Gus. If it's in a word, or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. If you're really a clever one, and you know what it is to see, then you can make friends with a special one, a friend of you and me. His name is Mr. Babadook, and this is his book. A rumbling sound, then 3 sharp knocks. Babadook, dook, dook. That's when you'll know he's around. You'll see him if you look. Babadook, dook, dook. This is what he wears on top. He's funny, don't you think? See him in your room at night, and you won't sleep a wink. I'll soon take off my funny disguise. Take heed of what you've read, and once you see what's underneath, you're going to wish you were dead. For those who think that's just for kids, this thing is not for me. I urge you not to say those words. Please take this seriously. Dook, dook, dook. There's just no way you're off the hook if you're all grown up when you read this book and you snub your nose with a civilized look. You'll appeal even more to the big Babadook. And this is what he'll say. I'll wager with you. I'll make you a bet. The more you deny me, the stronger I get. You'll then be my puppet, my plaything, my pet. I'll make you do things you'll be sure to regret. You cannot get rid of me. Dare to look me in the face. Try to put me in my place. I will cause you so much strife, but you might just get out with your life. Whether adult or child, best to give me a home. Put the welcome mat out with a room of my own. And accept that I'm here, and from you I have grown. Keep me smaller in size. I might leave you alone. I only said might. If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And please don't be tempted to tear up this book. Dang, Dr. Seuss is Baba shook. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Bye.